We live in a world that has forgotten how to grieve. And this is a really big problem. It took me years to understand why it was important to cry. Hello, magnificent human. My name is Elyse, and I wrote The Realm of Unity, a utopian fantasy or a guidebook home to yourself. And today I want to talk about grief. You see, I had a pretty normal childhood, and it wasn't until I was about 10 years old that I experienced any real trauma. Um, but when I hit 10, I had trauma after trauma that I would carry in my body for a long time. That trauma shut me down emotionally for almost 2 decades. The day I'm about to share, I will never forget. It was a day that was basically the poop cherry on top of a 2-year poop sundae. It was 1981, and I was 11 years old. After 2 challenging years, things were beginning to return to normal. Over the course of 2 short years, my parents divorced. We moved across the world. I was separated from my mom for an entire year. She had been my lifeline, and so that separation was incredibly painful. When I finally returned to her in the United States, we had even more trauma because as she was navigating everything she was going through, she had some emotional breakdowns, and I was put in foster care for a time. But eventually we were reunited, and things were starting to kind of return to normal. Things were getting better. On the poop cherry day, I was living with my mother and my brothers in a small townhouse in Pocatello, Idaho. Things had settled down. We were moving on with life. My father was still on the other side of the world, but we maintained a good relationship. I loved both of my parents very much. And I was relieved that the intensity was finally settling down. I was in 6th grade, and I was just about to go over to my friend Michelle's house. Even though Michelle and I had posters of John Stamos on the wall, we still both liked playing Barbies. So I was looking forward to walking over to her house. The phone rang, and I happened to grab it before walking out the door. A man's voice on the other end asked for my mother, and I handed her the phone. Immediately from the look on her face and the way her breath changed, I knew something was horribly wrong. My mother hung up the phone and said, "Call Michelle. Tell her you can't come over." I did as she said. I remember my heart was beating really, really fast because the last time I'd seen that look on her face and heard her breathe in that way, things were not good, and I was terrified. She gathered my brothers and me onto the couch, and she shared the news. "Your father has been killed," she said. "He was changing a tire on the side of the road and was hit by a car." Well, I went numb. I actually didn't feel anything. Actually, that's not true. What I did feel was kind of an odd sense of relief. Because the last time my mother had breathed like that, it was something intangible. And this time it wasn't just some strange demon that I didn't understand. It was a real upset, a real reason to be upset. My father was dead. She asked if I wanted to talk about it, and I said, "No." "Can I go to Michelle's?" I asked. And that was the last time we ever talked about it. It wasn't that she didn't want to help me, but we just didn't have the capacity to deal with that level of pain, that level of loss. As loving as she was, she did not have the tools to help me find a way to let go. And I certainly didn't know how to grieve. We don't have a society that knows how to deal with these kind of situations. There's really no safe place to grieve. Life just goes on. I remember the next day at school, standing on the playground, one of the aides had come over and put her arm around me, and I remember thinking, I should cry. I tried to squeak out some tears, and I just felt heartless. I didn't feel anything. Honestly, it wasn't until about 20 years later that I was able to grieve the death of my father. Nobody helped me with my grief. I did have therapists who tried to ask me about it, but it was buried so deeply that it was just completely inaccessible. I remember just shrugging my shoulders, said, "No, I don't need to talk about that." And at the time, I didn't. I had buried the wound so deep that it was stuck inside me. And I think of unresolved grief as like constipation. It's like all this old crap that gets stuck inside, and there's no space for anything new. And what I've learned since then, studying psychology and trying to understand um, humans, is that old stuck feelings create patterns. And the patterns are trying to protect you from feeling old, painful feelings, or they're trying to resolve them by recreating similar situations. This is called recapitulation. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to recreate the same unhealthy relationship time and time again? They get out of one bad relationship and then fall into the same dysfunctional pattern with a new partner. The reason this is because unfelt feelings are always trying to be resolved. For me, it manifested as being unable to fall in love. So for years, I was in and out of relationships and I had little or no feeling about them. I was just kind of like, okay. I had shut down my ability to feel. I was empty. Something was trying to protect me from feeling that pain until I was ready. I was almost 30 before I fell in love for the first time. And I fell hard. Really, really hard. Unfortunately, he didn't fall for me the same way. And something in me knew it wouldn't end well. So for 3 years, I had this deep longing to be loved that he could not reciprocate. And as I suspected, it did not end well. He ended up in bed with another woman. The breakup was excruciating. My logical mind could not understand why I had given this one human being so much power. The pain was like a knife in my heart, like literally stabbing me repeatedly. In addition to the anger that I felt, deep, deep grief started to come up. Fortunately, I understood it wasn't just the grief of the breakup. It was the part of me trying to resolve the pain of losing my father. And I went back and forth, feeling the grief of the loss of my relationship and the loss of my father. My father had left me when I needed him the most. I never had a father to guide me as I went through puberty, as I started dating, as I started looking for a partner. I didn't have a role model of a healthy relationship. It wasn't until after that and another relationship where my partner actually died. Talk about recapitulation. It wasn't until after all that I was able to fully and completely grieve. I've done a lot of work since then around forgiving and resolving old feelings. I'm happy to share that I now have a beautiful and loving relationship with my husband. It's peaceful, it's caring, and it's truly the one I've always wanted. He doesn't try to fix me. He doesn't try to change me. He's just a solid, sturdy presence in my life, and we love each other equally. We live in a world that has forgotten how to grieve. We have 8 billion people, most of whom are walking around with unresolved grief, looking for a way to unravel it. What can we do? What can we do to help build a more beautiful world? Well, we can continue to remind each other it's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. When you lose something you love, it's sad. It's just really, really sad. And it's normal to grieve. It's good to grieve. It's essential to grieve. If we desire a more beautiful world, we must learn how to grieve. Our grief and our tears make space for something new. They're there to help us let go of something that is no longer ours. We don't forget about them. They always live in our heart, but we let go of the pain. We let go of the pain. So grieve as long as you need to and cry as many tears as you need to. Let's hold each other with compassion and let's make space for the new, for the beautiful, for the magnificent. I hope this was helpful and I wish you so much love.